Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coach Replay Show. I'm your host, Cory Kemp, and I've got Kim with me again today as our co-host this season. Again, still weird to say this, it's season 4 of the Coach Replay Show. 4 years. Here we go, 4th year. So super excited. All this month, we are coming at you with some resources and tips for you as coaches, as instructional leaders, to kind of help you prepare for a year on your campus and in your organization. So today, Kim, we're talking about schedules and maybe even some coaching menus, but all things about scheduling. So Kim, when you were a coach, how did you kind of run your schedule? Were you digital? Were you paper? Not when you were a coach, because you still coach, but like when that was your full-time job, how did you kind of manage and organize your schedule?
Well, I think I was always digital. I've just been always, digitally inclined, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think you have to be to organize your days and your weeks. I would always think about my schedule in either like weeks or multiple weeks, depending on my role as a coach. Always digital, and really try to map out those things that I had to do first, that I knew were like standing meetings and like those kind of things, before I got into those other activities that could be moved around and played with. And I know we're going to show some samples of this, but I was always digital, just because the movements of things. It made it really hard to have that paper schedule. Did you have a paper schedule?
I totally did.
I know you did.
So different. I totally did. Erin Condren, he's I still like right now. We are getting into football and fall softball, and the start of school in a few weeks. And my husband's, he's coaching fall softball, and he's like, "When would you rather have practice?" And I'm like, "Well, when is football?" And anyways, part of me is like, "We need a paper schedule." It's the last thing I do. But I loved my paper schedule. I finally went digital. I don't know. Maybe 10, 11 years ago, I finally went fully digital, but I did still pay a good chunk of money for like the first 2 years of that digital life on Erin Condren with the stickers and all the stuff. So, but you're right. Like, it's fluid. Nothing ever went in pen or marker in my paper calendar unless it was a birthday, because things change. So here's the thing that we do share with everyone, and kind of like what's driving our focus of our conversation for our show today is this PSA, this public service announcement. Here you go, y'all. You, coach, leader, admin, instructional support individual, do not have to do everything in person. It's great if you're on the same campus with those that you support. Maybe you're in the district of those that you support, so you're floating from campus to campus, and that's great. And in person is really important, but there are some things that are really more valuably done in person, and there are lots of things that we can do because of the digital world, right? I've now converted to a fully digital calendar, and my life is continuing to go on, and things are easier, and I do miss my pretty calendar, but I've got other pretty things. The other one is, and I think Kim, you talk a lot about this too in your coaching, is you should not be the one doing all the work, right? Like, the person who's doing all the heavy lifting and putting forth all the effort and doing all the thinking about things is the one who's doing the learning, right? And that really shouldn't be us. We should be learning and in our coaching experiences, but we shouldn't be the one doing all the work, right?
Yep, I totally agree. And I think my mind has shifted on that a lot throughout my coaching. I used to think, and I've said this before, I used to think that I was the one with the answers, and my job was to just give everyone what I know.
Right.
And we know that's not possible to have all the answers, and nor should it. And so if a teacher is really thinking and owning their work and the movement, then the change will really happen. It's not going to come from me just saying all of the things that are great and all the things they need to work on. That's not how change works. It's taken me a while to realize that and get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But with that, I mean, I think it comes to making some intentional decisions around how you design your day-to-day engagement with people and your work. So this is a really good time, this kind of first month of the school year, to sit down and really think about what your own coaching philosophy is, what you want out of coaching, what makes you happiest as a coach, what types of things do you do. Now, unfortunately, if that is going into a teacher's classroom and taking over the classroom and modeling and doing lesson planning and all that stuff, then you're still going to be doing all the work. So let's just find a better, happier place. But really think about how you want your schedule to run. So here's the idea that we want to pitch to you to think about how to do what you do. It is blended coaching. Kim and I run whole cohorts on this. We've talked with lots of organizations about starting to think about this. This is different from virtual coaching or even hybrid coaching. There's a reason why we use the word blended. So let me just break down this definition for you, and then Kim's going to walk you through some examples of how she did this in her work as a regional coach and consultant. So blended coaching is really taking this idea from blended learning that there's multiple modalities where learning happens: online and offline, and synchronous or real time, and asynchronous, meaning kind of self-paced on your own. And it's thinking about our coaching activities and using these 4 modalities really intentionally to design a cycle that best fits our individual's needs. So this kind of creates this kind of connected, integrated experience. So it's not just, I'm going to come and observe you in person, synchronously in your classroom, and we don't have time to debrief today, so I'm just going to shoot you an email to give you the feedback. And you should read that email and you should do something with that feedback. But it's thinking about, how can I use the tools and technology at my fingertips to really get the most out of it? So when I am face-to-face with a teacher or an individual that I'm coaching, I'm able to do the things that are really going to make the most impact. Building a relationship, allowing time for a conversation, some things to process so that when we meet to talk about the lesson that happened, that I'm not the one doing all the talking as the coach, right? So if I maybe ask the teacher to record their lesson or take a few pictures of some student work samples that resulted as products of the lesson and share that with me and give them a couple of guiding questions, and then we sit down and talk about it, as opposed to making all the time that I'm face-to-face with teachers, me watching them teach, but not having any time to talk, right? Kim, you said something today when we were together that I thought was really cool, which was, you can be in the same room with somebody, but not have that time to talk. And that's not very high impact, right? So this is the shift that we are presenting to you. If you're interested in this, we've got tons of resources about this in our learning center at learn.sibme.com. But with this in mind, again, you don't have to do everything in person. That doesn't devalue what you're doing. It doesn't mean that that's a lesser activity. It's just using the tools at your fingertip, right? So if a Google Calendar makes things easier for you to schedule, remember, because it sends you those reminders, or you can add other people to the event, then why not use a Google Calendar, right? So Kim, I'm going to show an example of kind of what it looked like when you first started doing this in your work back in North Carolina. And I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So I, in my use case, and everybody has a different situation as a coach, how many people do you coach? How often do you see them? There may be requirements and things of you. In this example, I had 25 to 30 teachers that I was coaching. They were across a region, like Cory said. So I would have to drive maybe 45 minutes, 30 minutes. They were kind of clustered in schools. So I had a group of teachers that I was working with, but I would still have to go to multiple places in order to accomplish my goals. I wanted to see them one time each week. And I found that very challenging and also, frankly, not necessary. Do I need to go see them just to see them, or is it purposeful? Right. So really what I started to do was something similar to what's on this chart here. So each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would go to a school. It may not be exactly 3 teachers, because if in that school I have 4, it wouldn't make sense to just do 3, right? But I would observe teachers in person or have meetings with them. That I would have some in-person something that I was doing. It might be a post observation conversation. It might be some sort of pre-observation conversation, but either way, in person, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was seeing a group of people. I was also, if it was an observation, I was always recording that observation as well, because frankly, when it comes to reflection, that's really the best way, is to like have this video evidence. Sometimes it was also me modeling for them. In that same way, I would be recording. So again, each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was in person doing something with teachers. While that was happening on those same days, I would have teachers recording themselves. And it could be that they're recording video of themselves. It could be that they're recording their students and showing me how they're kind of reacting to their lesson. It could be also that they're sending me pictures of their student work samples and or their lesson plans. So all of those things are possible. But I have some sort of artifact, something that the teachers are sending me. So different group of teachers on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are sending me something. Friday was kind of my catch-up day. It was the day where I was like, okay, if I haven't had a chance to watch their video, this is the time I'm going to do it. I'm going to give feedback. I'm going to kind of have this asynchronous conversation. Hopefully that's done throughout the week. But if I didn't have time, that Friday was kind of my time to do that. And so it really allowed me that next week I would flip and go see in person the people that I didn't the week before. So it allowed me this every other week situation where I could see people in person, but also have asynchronous work. And throughout that, there are conversations that are happening that are offline, so to speak, that are not necessarily in person with those folks.
Yeah. And, we love Sibme for our work, but we also know folks who do this in a number of different ways using other platforms, not as robustly, especially if you're using video or you're doing the annotation tools. Like that's the tool that we love here on the Coach Replay Show. But so again, this idea of kind of dividing your time up so that you can be in 2 places at once. I love that you have on here that kind of like admin day, that Friday. For me, it was Thursdays, and an hour block in the morning and an hour in the afternoon after lunch. That was kind of my catch-all time to just kind of tie up loose ends and make sure I didn't drop the ball on anything and just kind of do things, because Fridays always seem to be too hectic for myself. So yeah, I think this is a good example and a perfect representation of the fact that you don't have to physically be there. I think the thing that's my favorite about using video when it comes to coaching is it's not about me seeing the teacher necessarily. It's about the teacher seeing themselves and having that opportunity to reflect so that they can do the learning, that it's not just dependent upon me as a coach. So
yeah, and that's why in person, I still think the video doesn't stop because I'm in person. And like you said, we were having a conversation earlier today with a group of people who I was like, there were times when I was videoing what the students were doing in person because the teacher maybe wasn't noticing that. And I think that's part of it too, especially we worked a lot with beginning teachers. And so they weren't always seeing the holistic side of what was happening in their classroom. And if I'm videoing the student in the back that's doing something, writing, that's different than everybody else, that's super helpful too. I still share that with them. So that creates this, we're still asynchronously sharing video. Even if I'm there in person, I might have to do that later.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of other things about video and coaching, which of course is one of the reasons for the show, the Coach Replay, is about, how do you use video in your coaching? Because it's a pretty disruptive tool. But I do want to say, especially if you're recording in the classroom, you want to make sure that you're utilizing tools that are safe and secure for the confidentiality and the privacy of the students and the teacher in the classroom, which is why we use Sibme. So be sure that you're doing that if you are using video. YouTube is not that platform really for that feedback and for you to be able to store those, even if you have them unlinked. We love YouTube. That's where our channel is, but that's not where I would be doing my coaching. So, but yeah, even, just looking at the students or even recording, models of yourself, kind of in your office or on your own. You're not able to be in front of that teacher or with that teacher, but you know that they need that resource. They need an example. So you can create those and send that to them on their own time. So those are a lot of the things I also did on Thursday, was creating. And so, yeah, so this idea of thinking about your coaching activities and seeing where it's most valuable for you to be doing something, in real time with somebody in the same room with them, and how you can maybe virtualize your time just a little bit so that you can better meet everyone's needs is really kind of the big thing that I think is important to think about this year. Like where can you work smarter and not harder in some areas? That's not just going to be something that's more efficient, but more effective too. So let's take a look at an example of something else that I used to do in my coaching. And I know a lot of coaches that do this, but this is also a tip that I'll share with coaches who are like, I didn't think about doing that. So there may become a time in your career where you're asked, what are you spending all your time on? Or you might be sitting back and going, I feel like I've just been, all my time is spent doing this and I'm not able to do these things. Again, this is where maybe creating a goal and a vision for yourself as a coach this year would be something that'd be really valuable. I highly recommend doing that. But then how do you measure that as you go? For me, Kim, are you this person? Do you color code? I was a color coder. Yes. In my paper planner, my Erin Condren, it was different color pens or highlighters over that pencil. But in the digital world, I love just being able to change the color of events. So here's an example. Now, this is like a more of a like perfect use case, like example here. We know that coaching doesn't always look this colorful. And that there's probably a lot of other duties as assigned and covering classes, those things that are in gray here on my example, probably taking up your calendar. But that's important. If you go back and you look and you just kind of visually see where your time is being spent, that can be a powerful message that you can then take to somebody who might be able to help you with that. Maybe it's the admin. Hey, you want me to be doing more times doing this? Well, you also have me doing all of this. Can I take something off my plate so I can do those things more? Or, I'm wearing multiple hats. All of them fall under my job responsibilities, but these take more time. So just managing expectations. So on the left, you see that there are these color codes. I try to put this as an example. And here I took that blended coaching approach, and you'll see that there's some in-person observations and some virtual work here in the purple. And I also liked to delineate between, when I'm going in and observing, when I'm modeling, and when I'm planning with teachers versus just kind of debriefing and having conversations. So this is kind of what my calendar looked like as far as the colors I used whenever I was a coach. What about you, Kim? Was there a specific strategy that you used to kind of be able to see your time visually?
Yeah, I think something very similar. So I had, I think I mentioned this early on. I blacked out all of the meetings that I knew I had to attend, like not a choice. I have to be in this ILT meeting. I have to be in, or I'm running the PLC. So those things are a certain color, which it looks like you have as well. And then I would go in and block off time for pre-observation or pre-conversations, post-conversations, which had to be during planning time or before or after school, depending on what we had. So those are the things that I would kind of block out. And then the observation time, if it was in person, might shift a little because there might be a certain block that teacher is struggling with, first block, second block, whatever, or a certain content area, read aloud, guided reading time or whatever, that teacher really needed support with. So those observation times maybe were not consistent week over week, just depending on goals, but that would be another color. So it would be like my PLC meetings and ILT meetings were in one color. My pre-post conversations, if they were different, whatever, would be in a different color. And then my actual observation time. And then asynchronous work would be something else as well. And then obviously there's always car rider duty. There's always like
lunch duty
for a teacher. Yeah. So those would all be, a different color too. And I think being able to color code really, I had a principal say to me once, there's this one thing that we were really focusing on. And she was like, what is getting in the way of this thing happening? And so she's like, do me a favor, look at your calendar. Let's come together and let's talk. And I was actually doing a lot of like avoiding of the thing that I didn't want to do. But I knew that because I looked at my calendar and saw where I was spending my time. Yeah. And I would even go in there like after the day was over, if I had blocks of time, and be like, this is what I was doing during that time, just so that I knew where I was spending my time so I could analyze it later. And as a coach, that was really important. And as you said, I think sometimes it's like justifying my role is to coach. I'm having a hard time doing that because of da-da-da-da. Or in my other example, I'm not doing the thing I said that we were going to do because I'm avoiding it. So that was one of the things that happened. It's all about learning and growth, though, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can see on my example here, like I've got like teachers' names like Hoffman and Justice in Houston, and I just made those names up. Actually, all of them are people with last names I know of people. But I also did the same thing. Like I would make sure, because then I can do this cool thing in my Google Calendar where I search, co-teaching, or I search McKinley, and I can see all of the events that are related to that, and then be able to quickly see, like, if I'm not responsible for maintaining any kind of a log. And I go at this with, I just did this for me, but you may have a requirement for doing any number of these things. Or at some point you have to report on how you're spending your time or what you're talking about with people. And so finding a way to easily be able to log that, I think, is important. But if for anything for yourself, just to see where you're spending your time, what do you really enjoy, and how does that impact your own learning and growth, and where you continue to grow as a professional. So I think that's important. We would love to know your tips for maintaining and managing your schedule. Share that with us in the comments below, or email us at learn@Sibme. Just joking. learn@sibme.com. That's it. I thought I was going to give the website again. Goodness.
You got it. Yeah.
I got it. All right. So let's talk about how we develop a schedule. So you said something I think that was really great in the fact that you kind of used a blocking method to design your general schedule, and then you filled that in based off of need, I'm guessing. So how did you know that people needed, like where you needed to go and what you needed to do within those blocks?
I think it really depended on that first conversation that you have with the teacher, where you're like, okay, what are your goals? And then being able to say, well, okay, so you want to work on guided reading that happens at 8:30 a.m. Look, I happen to be available next week at 8:30, and I'm coming in during that time. Or conveniently, I have this platform that I can use. So like, if I can't come in person, why don't you record that, and I'll give you some feedback on it. We can talk about it next week. So I think those conversations, that all, again, kind of remained fluid. In order to do that, I had to have some blocks that were free. But being able to have this blended coaching model made it easy for me to say, oh, well, in person next week, I don't have that time, but record and we'll do this thing asynchronously. And
here's how we can do that, right? Like, is that something you really want me in the classroom for? Or let's talk about some ways that we might be able to look at that together. I love that. So something I learned about later in my coaching career that I really loved. And we actually had Kenny McKee on last season to talk about this idea. We've got a few examples for you that we'll include in our notes and takeaways, which you can always access at learn.sibme.com. Very similar email, learn@sibme.com. And so it's coaching menus, right? So maybe I do what Kim's done, and I've kind of blocked out like the percentage based on the percentages of how I want to spend my days or my weeks or my month, these blocks ideally, and then I begin to fill them. But who do I fill them with, and how do I do that? How do I make sure that what I have identified as like my wish list of time spending actually meets teacher need, right? That's the big thing. We our customers as coaches are teachers, are those that we're supporting. So how do you make sure you're meeting their needs? I think coaching menus are where it's at. Teachers and voices involved in here. We're going to talk about tiered coaching, so you can add some of those things in here. So Kim, you found a pretty cool one when I was vacationing a few weeks ago, and you shared it with me. So I want to share this one as an example because this is super cute. This comes from Rhinelander Instructional Coaching Department in that school district. So shout out to them. Look at this.
Yeah. So I love the nod to working out just because I'm big on doing that. But it's really in this example, and we'll put this in the takeaways for you to look at. But the teacher is really deciding like what do they need, what do they want, and they're designing a workout that's best for them. So do you want a warm-up situation? Do you want a workout situation? Do you want a cool down situation? And the first thing that shows up is like a warm-up is like gathering resources, co-planning, kind of, is it this warm-up thing, or is it a workout where you're actually going through a coaching cycle, or team teaching, or is it about reflection, which is the cool down? I really love this idea and this play on working out, but giving people choice in what they're learning. I think that's when the real change happens, is when people have an option and teachers feel like they're valued and that they're working towards their goals. So this allows you, if you're like, I don't even know where to start, there are so many examples of these menus where people can choose, and that gives you, it helps build relationships, and it gives you at least a place to begin, where people are choosing their own path, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think this helps build relationships, right? Because they feel like there's some choice and voice within the partnership of coaching. We talked last episode about roles and responsibilities and helping clarify what it is you do and how do people get in touch with you. This is a little bit of the what and the how, right? What does working with me look like? Well, it can look a lot of different ways. So let's mix and match some things. And maybe you pick one from each column, or just one from one of the columns, or it looks here like there's, a totally new way that you can invent, a whole new coaching move, and they can help you do that. So shout out to that instructional coaching team, because this is a great example. I'm going to show you a couple of others here as we wrap up today. One of which is a regular on the Coach Replay show, Stephanie Affinito. She does coaching menus, and she changes hers up pretty often based off of different times of the year, themes, units. And so I like to give hers. Sometimes she does this like as a bingo option, like pick one from every column, or let's try to do like a tic-tac-toe kind of thing. But this is another example. And again, we see here a little bit of like what it looks like. What are some examples of us learning together, collaborating together, creating together? And there's different intensities too that we see as examples within some of these menus. So yeah, maybe you start with a coaching menu and use that when you're sharing out a little bit about who you are and what you plan on doing this year, or what your vision is for your role on the campus this year, and let people start signing up. So I think that's valuable. And speaking of signing up, I'm going to go to our last example, which is a digital menu. So not just digitally formatted, but it is like a Google form where people not only see the options, but they fill out that form. So you get it into a spreadsheet or Google Sheet or your inbox, and it's got a name with it, and it helps you kind of identify those things. And this is from Kenny McKee. The biggest thing that I learned from him that's different from other coaching menus that I've seen is he asks in his menu, not just like, what do you want to do and how do you want to do it? But he also asks like, how soon are you wanting to do this? Do you need my help now or sometime next 9 weeks? So putting that in your menu when people kind of sign up for support, when they put that request in, can also help you prioritize your time, which I think is really important for us as we think about our year. So coaching menus for the win. You can access all of these resources in our notes and takeaways. If you've got one you want to share with us, Kim and I are always looking for examples. So share away.
Share away.
That. Kim, any last words as we talk about the importance of scheduling and creating a menu of options and any of those things?
I mean, I just think that creating a schedule is important to keep yourself on track, but also important to look back on and analyze how you're spending your time. Mm-hmm. Both of those things were really valuable. I don't know how it's done without a schedule, so it's definitely the place to start. If you have blocks in that time in that schedule, then those menus are a place to fill those time slots. Just let people in. But I'm looking forward to hearing. I know there are a million other great resources out there, so if you have one, please share.
Yeah, definitely share with us. You can always send them to us at learn@sibme.com, and you can always access our notes and takeaways at learn.sibme.com. Learn, Sibme, com, all of those, some order of them with some dots and some @ symbols will get you to us. Mm-hmm. All right, folks, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on your favorite social media platform. We've got a lot of stuff coming at you this season of Coach Replay Show, and Kim and I will see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.